The Antediluvian era, also known as the period before the Great Flood, is an incredible yet gloomy time in our history. This era is known for extraordinarily long human lifespans, direct interactions between celestial creatures, angels, giants, and humans, and a deplorable moral decline that ultimately led to a catastrophic flood. So what was this antediluvian era like? And what was life like before the Great Flood? According to the Bible, the antediluvian world was a place where humans lived for several centuries, and angels frequently interacted with them. This era began with the first humans, Adam and Eve, and ended with Noah, the only righteous man in a world filled with corruption. The events surrounding this era are rich, with feats of pioneering advancements, expansive populations, and high-rising wickedness, all leading up to a divine judgment that reshaped the world. Let's look at how all these happened. After being expelled from the Garden of Eden for disobeying God's command, Adam and Eve faced a new reality outside paradise. Their lives, now characterized by labor and hardship, saw the birth of their children, including their notable sons, Cain and Abel. Abel, a shepherd, offered the best of his flock to God, while Cain, a farmer, presented some of his crops. God favored Abel's offering, causing Cain to burn with jealousy. Despite God's warning to master his sin, Cain lured Abel into the fields and killed him, committing the first murder ever recorded in the antediluvian period. Because of this, God confronted Cain, asking him about Abel's whereabouts. When Cain responded with defiance, saying, "Am I my brother's keeper?" God cursed him to wander the earth, marked so that no one would kill him out of vengeance. Cain settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden, where he built a city and named it after his son, Enoch. This city eventually became a symbol of human ingenuity and defiance as Cain's descendants began to populate the earth. Cain's lineage is most notable for its contributions to early human civilization. His descendants became pioneers in various fields. For instance, Jabal, one of Cain's descendants, was known as the father of those who live in tents and raise livestock, essentially founding the practice of animal husbandry. His brother, Jubal, was the father of all who play musical instruments, specifically the harp and flute, thus creating the earliest forms of music in the antediluvian era. But amidst these human developments, a significant spiritual rebellion was taking place. Some angels, led by Satan, were out to defy God and were cast out of heaven. These fallen angels began interacting with humans, leading to further moral decline. Their influence was widespread, introducing new forms of wickedness never known before, and tempting humans away from righteousness. Satan, otherwise known as Lucifer Morningstar, the leader of the rebellious angels, exerted a powerful influence over the world. He was initially a high-ranking angel, but his pride led to his downfall. His rebellion against God was rooted in a desire for power and autonomy. After being cast out of heaven, Satan continued to oppose God by corrupting humanity. His first major act was tempting Eve in the Garden of Eden, leading to the fall of humankind. In the antediluvian era, Satan's influence permeated society. He exploited human weakness, sowing seeds of jealousy, pride, and violence. Cain's murder of Abel was a direct result of this influence, as was the increasing depravity among Cain's descendants. Despite God's warnings, humanity continued to fall deeper into sin, driven by Satan's relentless efforts to lead them astray. It was during this time as well that the moral rightness of the antediluvian society began and continued to unfold with the advent of polygamy, which began with Cain's descendants. This practice deviated from God's original design for monogamous relationships, and led to further moral corruption. For instance, Lamech, a descendant of Cain, was the first recorded polygamist. He married 2 women, Ada and Zillah, and boasted to his wives about killing a man who had injured him. Lamech's declaration showed the rising violence and pride that was evident in the antediluvian world. This period saw a horrifying increase in bloodshed and lawlessness. The social order deteriorated as people abandoned ethical standards, indulging in their most inhuman instincts. The world became a place where might made right, and the strong oppressed the weak. The unchecked spread of violence and immorality set the stage for the eventual divine judgment. Despite all this, one of the most striking features of the antediluvian era was the extraordinary longevity of human lifespans. Adam, the first man, lived for 930 years, his son Seth for 912 years, and Methuselah, the longest-lived human, reached 969 years. These extended lifespans allowed for rapid population growth and the accumulation of knowledge and skills across generations. However, this longevity also contributed to the spread of sin. With centuries to live, people had more than enough time to develop and entrench corrupt behaviors. The long lives of the antediluvian people meant that they could perpetuate their sinful ways over many generations, leading to a deep-seated culture of wickedness. As the population grew, so did the extent of moral decay, affecting almost every aspect of society. During this time, the fallen angels further complicated human existence. They intermingled with human women, producing the Nephilim, a race of giants described as mighty men of renown. These beings were known for their extraordinary strength and size, often becoming leaders and warriors. However, their influence was largely negative, contributing to the moral corruption of the world. The Nephilim were often oppressive and violent, causing a rise in the already prevalent bloodshed and chaos. Their presence indicated the growing intersection between human and celestial rebellion, resulting in a world where the lines between mortal and supernatural wickedness were increasingly blurred. As the omniscient and omnipresent creator of the universe, who is constantly observing the pervasive wickedness of man, God regretted creating humans. The Bible tells us God's heart was filled with pain as he saw the extent of human corruption. The world had become a place where evil thrived, and the intentions of people's hearts were continuously wicked. It is for this reason that prophet Jeremiah later said in chapter 17, verse 9, "The heart is deceitful above all things, and desperately wicked. Who can know it?" The divine response to all this evil was both sorrowful and decisive. God decided to send a great flood to cleanse the earth of its corruption. This decision meant a turning point in the antediluvian story. The flood was meant to be an act of judgment, wiping out the rampant wickedness and providing a chance for a fresh start. God's plan to destroy the world with a flood was a veritable statement about the extent of human sin and the necessity of divine intervention. Amidst all the corruption, there was one man who stood out for his faithfulness and integrity: Noah. The Bible describes Noah as a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time. He walked with God, maintaining his faith and obedience despite the pervasive wickedness around him. Because of his faithfulness, Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. God chose Noah to be the instrument of humanity's salvation. He instructed Noah to build an ark, a massive vessel designed to preserve life during the coming flood. And despite the ridicule and doubting nature of others around, Noah remained obedient, dedicating years to the construction of the ark. His staunch faith and diligence were a beacon of hope in a dark world. God provided Noah with detailed instruction for the ark's construction. The ark was to be made of cypress wood, coated with pitch inside and out to make it waterproof. It was to be 450 feet long, 75 feet wide and 45 feet high, with 3 decks to accommodate Noah's family and pairs of every kind of animal. The task was enormous, requiring immense effort and resources. Noah, along with his sons, labored for decades to complete the ark. They gathered the necessary materials, constructed the massive structure, and prepared for the influx of animals. God provided them guidance to ensure that the ark would be sufficient to withstand the flood and preserve life. When the time came, God commanded Noah to enter the ark with his family and the animals. Once they were safely aboard, the floodwaters began to rise. For 40 days and nights, torrential rain fell from the sky and fountains of the deep burst forth, covering the earth with water. The floodwaters rose above the highest mountains, wiping out all living creatures outside the ark. The flood was a cataclysmic event, a divine response to the perversion and corruption in the world. Unfortunately, this saw the end of the Antediluvian era and the beginning of a new chapter in human history. The destruction was total, sparing only Noah, his family, and the animals on the ark. This act of judgment demonstrated the seriousness of sin and the lengths to which God would go to restore righteousness. After the waters receded, Noah and his family emerged from the ark onto a cleansed earth. They offered sacrifices to God in gratitude for their salvation, and God made a covenant with Noah, promising never to destroy the earth with a flood again. This covenant was symbolized by a rainbow, a sign of God's enduring promise. Noah's faithfulness ensured the survival of humanity and a fresh start after the flood. From Noah's descendants, the earth was repopulated and the foundations of a new society were laid. This new beginning was indicated by a renewed commitment to righteousness and the lessons learned from the moral decline of the Antediluvian era. The story of life before the flood is a terrific reminder of the consequences of sin and the importance of faithfulness. Despite the darkness of the Antediluvian era, Noah's obedience to God provided a path to renewal and hope for the future. This further shows the complexity of human nature, the dangers of straying from divine principles, and the ever-present possibility of redemption. If you found this video insightful, don't hesitate to say so in the comments section. Also, like, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell. See you next time.